Superhumanize. Accelerated evolution.
Welcome back, superhumans. Today we're navigating the deep waters where sexuality, trauma, and psychedelics converge. Our guest, Dr. Kat Meyer, isn't just a therapist. She's a modern-day alchemist of the soul, a medicine woman, a psychotherapist who integrates the ancient wisdom of Tantra and yoga with the cutting-edge science of ketamine therapy. As a licensed psychotherapist, sexologist, and author, Dr. Kat is revolutionizing how we perceive and experience sexuality. She's helping us redefine our relationships with our bodies, our partners, and ultimately with ourselves. Imagine a world where sexual trauma is not just addressed, but transmuted into a source of deep power and healing, where intimate relationships become a sacred dance of exploration and growth, and where the boundaries of pleasure and pain blur to offer a path of profound self-realization. This is the world Dr. Kat invites us to, a world where shadow work, psychedelics, and BDSM can be tools for transformation rather than taboos. In today's episode, we'll explore some highly provocative topics. How can psychedelics help us heal from sexual trauma and enhance our connection to our bodies? What does it mean to truly engage in shadow work, not just as a buzzword, but as a path to reclaim our authenticity? And for those curious about the world of play parties and BDSM, Dr. Kat will guide us through understanding these experiences, not just as kink, but as profound avenues for growth, healing, and integration. We'll also get personal. How does one navigate their own trauma and bring it into the light for healing? Dr. Kat has guided many through these treacherous waters, and today she'll share her wisdom with us. So if you're ready to challenge the norms, dive deep, and emerge with a more profound understanding of your own sexual and spiritual identity, you are in the right place. Dr. Kat, what a pleasure. Welcome to the Superhumanize podcast. Good to be here.
You too. I'm so excited.
Me as well. Oh gosh, I've been wanting to have you as a guest for quite a while now, and we've been communicating, and we have mutual friends and all that beautiful energy. So this is, yes, all in divine timing. And I've been following your work for a while now. I have such fascination and respect for it. In your work, you just so beautifully mold together and weave together Tantra, yoga, science, psychedelic therapy. And so for me, that's really creating a holistic approach to sexuality, to life. And it really bridges the gap, something that's often missing when you look at just either of the approaches on their own. It bridges this gap between the spiritual, the clinical, and also the deeply mystical. So what I'm really curious about, because this is this rich tapestry, this framework that you work in and that you also embody, how do you navigate that? And are there any potential conflicts or contradictions in the disciplines, and how do you then merge those together so they become a cohesive whole?
Oh my God, what a great question. I've never been asked this before. I think a big part of it is so my background, I have sexual trauma in my background, both as a child and then as a young adult. And I found yoga when I was 18, started teaching when I was 19, and it was the first experience of being able to really feel calm and safe and connected with my body. And that really catalyzed this, I could feel differently in my body. Because before that, I was really dissociated, but I had no idea. I struggled with an eating disorder. I had really bad depression and suicidality, and all of this hidden from the world. I was literally doing all these things by myself. Struggle with relationships. A lot of panic would come up, especially around sexuality. And yoga was like, I felt different. What is this? I can walk out of this class and it's, I feel so grounded, but not even understanding at that time what that meant. So I really dove into it. I became obsessed with yoga. And that was like this, okay, here's a philosophy I can anchor to. Here's a feeling in my body I can anchor to. And so a lot of that really inspired this idea of growing and healing. And that's when I became a psychologist. And then over the years, I like to make decisions based on inspiration, on like following these breadcrumbs of, oh, that's interesting. I want to learn more to it. Give it up to my Enneagram number 7, which is like an enthusiast who likes to go out there, I am a bit like all over the place for the light and the shadow of that. But I really believe that journey has led me to be able to see the connections of things. And I enjoy contemplating and critically thinking about whether it's concepts and seeing how they make sense, seeing where they don't make sense, and then seeing the bridge between that and another concept. The yoga was a physical embodiment. It was a spiritual contemplation of the world. But then I also saw some holes there in my personal self because the sexual piece of it, there's one of the 8 limbs is brahmacharya. And so that's about translating that is about it, or translates, how do you say, to abstinence. But then there's also other definitions of it that is more about being able to be disciplined and not just being conservative about your energy and how you're using your energy, how you're giving it out. So there's also other ways of interpreting or being able to bridge, and what did I gain from the yogic experience, a reassociation with my sensuality, with my body, with the sensations, with the emotions, and how that led to me having a healthier sex life and being able to heal from the inside out, from the bottom up. But then also being able to see from a mystical standpoint, the spiritual connection of everything in life, like the divinity in everything that we do, including sexuality. I come from a Catholic background, and there was a lot of shame. There was a lot of suppression. There was a lot of this is wrong and guilt. And to me, that doesn't facilitate liberation. It doesn't facilitate us to be able to connect with our divinity. And Tantra, as a limb of yoga, was one way that I was able to see the divinity in everything and the okayness of everything of the human experience, and all of it being a journey towards our expansion and our recognizing connection with source or self and others. So that, and then the BDSM world that I got into also helped me to transform the kink around it helped me to kinkify the shame that I had around my Catholicism. So now everything is really kinky.
Love it.
Playful and creative. So I would say, of everything, it's just like all of this interweaves, and it makes more sense when you pair it with this. And so it's just, for me, forever unfolding and expanding and making these links and seeing what language works best for people. Playfulness or kinkiness or the spiritual terminology, and just being able to, it's almost like speaking 10 different languages that help other people just grasp things more easily and through experience.
Thank you, Dr. Kat. And we're going to dive into this a little bit further down the conversation, but I just want to highlight, as a little enticement, the first time I met you in person was when I partook in one of your BDSM workshops with a dear friend of mine. Shout out to Danny Hagen here. She'll love hearing this. And I remember walking into the space. And the reason why I bring it up is you just shared with us all everything that you wove together for yourself and what you embody. The moment I laid eyes on you, I was literally electrified by your presence, by your energy. And not only is it such a strong, authentic, raw energy, it's also very loving and nurturing and centered. And I immediately just felt, yeah, this is really good. And you created an incredible space also with your co-facilitators. We'll talk about that a little bit down the road. You have so many incredible offerings you put forth into this world, and in ways that you actually are, if I may so say, not quote only, end of quote, therapist or teacher. You're a true medicine woman.
My God, thank you. Wow.
Absolutely. That immediately also struck me when I was first in your presence, and then also going through your body of work. So one of the incredible offerings is your work, with individuals. And I know every case is different, but could you walk us through a case where the integration of all of these beautiful, diverse influences significantly transformed a client's relationship with their body and sexuality?
Yeah, and I'll share some of my students because I want to keep private the client work, but with students I see here's a common experience that I see in relationships. And I've been speaking a lot about this because it can be very painful for women going through the experience of sexual trauma and feeling either a shutdown of your sexuality or feeling like a loss of libido and a loss of this energy, this vibrancy of energy in the body. And then wanting to be able to connect with partners or their significant other and not being able to and feeling broken in that sense. So there's several different ways that I can go about this. The first place I would say is helping them to reassociate with the body. You know, there can be these parts of us that come online that want to protect us from whatever pain or memories might be stored or stuck in the body. And so whether we dissociate or whether we suppress or whether we clench the body, or have eating disorders, in whatever way, it's these parts that try to protect us or try to manage the intensity or the pain or the big emotions that reside there. And so helping to reassociate means coming into the connection, the softness, the slowness of being with our body. This morning I went to yoga and this was a class that was just very slow moving and opening and finding the enjoyment of that again versus being in a perpetual state of clenching that really causes the body to either not be able to let go, but also not be able to access the amount of life force energy that could be available to us. And so once we start reassociating the body, we become connected with the subtle emotions in our body. We start connecting with the aliveness that can be there. We're opening the fascia. We're tuning into things that we might not otherwise be aware are happening all the time. So that's a great place to start. But then once you're starting to open the body, you open Pandora's box. And a lot of emotions come up, memories can come up. I've even had clients come out of psychedelic experiences and memories of past sexual trauma, or they think sexual trauma happened. This sensation of violation comes up, and there's all this confusion, or there's all this, I don't know, dysregulation. I don't know how to handle all this intensity that's coming up. So they're used to suppressing, but now it's all up. And so then we help with teaching that woman to create her own container, her own sense of holding herself, sovereignty in herself, understanding these emotions, communicating the emotions, physically processing emotions and not just intellectually processing these emotions and being able to say, I'm sad versus being able to have these guttural cries of grief that have been stored and stuck in the body for a long time. And then from there, it's helping to come back into really discovering how their body works sexually. Now, a lot of us have been taught that sex is male-based. It's genital focused, it's linear, and we're going for the orgasm. But what if none of that is true for our bodies? So it's like unwinding, redefining, expanding it, helping them to see that great sex doesn't even have to have an orgasm to be really juicy and yummy, and take that pressure off of them. And now their body can do what it wants to do instead of what we're trying to force it to do. And then from there, helping them to discover what is their sexual style, what are their desires. Many of us, especially us women, but really all of us, we've been trained to either put up with discomfort or not have desires because desires can be risky. Does it put you in a place of potential conflict with somebody? Is that being selfish, having your desire and asking for what you want? How do we even begin asking for what we want? What is that possible? And then, like, sex is such a varied manifestation of so many different ways. It can be sensual, kinky, it can be energetic, it can be really raw and hard, and it can be playful, and it can be soft. And if we don't know what our body is craving, then we're just signing up for what we think culture thinks or what our partner needs. And then we don't even realize that's killing our libido. So getting to learn and play and discover is a whole nother part of it.
Yes, and not just killing our libido, but killing our spirit. You mentioned it before. Sexuality is also something that helps us connect with divinity. And I've always thought, especially in the last years, that this suppression of a liberated sexuality, particularly imposed on women, but men suffer as well.
Yep.
Societies where the sexual freedom and right to express this of women is suppressed, everybody's unhappier. It is a means of control, and not to get into conspiracy theories here. I do believe each one of us, we are such a superpower. The divine is everywhere. And when we can connect with it and channel that into the moment, nothing is impossible. And I love the aspect of playfulness and exploration that you bring to this. Particularly for women, what I've loved watching in the last years is a shift. I'm an avid reader of all kinds of stuff, including newsletters. And I love your newsletter, by the way. It's a beautiful newsletter, so fun, so juicy, so informative. I highly recommend it. I'll post the link to it in the show notes for people to sign up, of course, but also looking at more a mix of commercial and informative newsletters, whether it's the Goops or the Push or the whatnots. Especially in the last 2-3 years, there's been a massive shift where pretty much in every newsletter edition, there's at least one, whether it's toys to pleasure for women or anything else. Is, hey, this is normal. This is part of taking care of yourself. There's none of the what you'd had 10 years ago, where people would be ashamed of it. And I think it's beautiful. And especially the younger generations are talking so openly about so much more than I have observed my generation do, or looking at porn websites that are women created and geared towards women, or been trying to get I just reached out. There's fantastic audio apps. I just know 2 of them, Quinn and Dipsy.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you have anything you could put into the search terms, whatever turns you on, no matter what, and you will find audio erotica by really talented narrators and actors. So whatever your preference is or your kink is, or you're curious about something, don't dare to go there in real life. Hey, here you can listen and see if it actually titillates you and excites you. And it's a safe space to explore huge women's communities that talk to each other about their different desires. No shame, just, hey, this is beautiful. Or also looking in the romance genre of the book world, and romance next to thriller being the highest selling genre worldwide, most of the readers being women. Genres that have been exploding are things like reverse harem, at least 3 lovers for one female protagonist, menage, reverse billionaire, the woman has all the money and power, and just things where women are exploring and enjoying and not holding back. And I love seeing that.
Bless you for knowing all of this. I love this. Yeah. I was listening to Dipsy the other day, and it just to give the audience an idea of this, it's like these stories where, and there's different types where somebody, the character is talking to you. So it's like a point of view. And then some of them are stories that you can follow along that have really hot sex scenes. And what I think is really cool about all of this that's emerging is that it gives us, for starters, it gives us these reference points of what is possible or how we can talk and how we can do dirty talk. I refer all these as inspirations for people who want to learn how to dirty talk, or how to use commands in sex, or how to create foreplay even before you get into the bedroom on sexting, or how can you drop your own self into that space to warm yourself up before you go and approach a partner. So it's not just a cold transition, it's you're warming yourself up even before you get into that situation. But it also gives us these reference points of power. Think about sex has not really been for women's pleasure and enjoyment for such a long time. And so now we're listening about other women who are taking charge or are leading the initiation, and we're leading the activity. And so that can be really powerful in a world where many of us have been conditioned to say that the other person has to lead, the man has to lead, or we have to follow. And that can work for some people, but we want to be careful not to narrow that to that's the only way to do this, that there can also be a way that you can lead through invitation or through modeling or through softening and slowing your own self versus just waiting for the other person to do the thing or learn where your clit is. And so you can take charge of your own sex life as well and see that influence everything around you.
100%. And when these juices are flowing, speaking literally and figuratively, everything else in your life comes into flow as well. Abundance keeps pouring in because you're open to receiving and overflowing. And another really important component about these, just in the last few years, really coming to the forefront, also more of the mainstream, whether it's the dipsies and the quins or the different romance genres or many other things like women created porn. I think it also, like you said, it shows what's possible, and it also very clearly models healthy sexuality. And whether you're into power exchange, and we're going to get into BDSM just shortly, but it doesn't mean suppressing somebody else. It actually means flowing with each other. And I remember one scene that I found so beautiful that exemplified it for me, because women are learning, wow, this is how it's supposed to be. There was a scene where the female protagonist woke up in bed with the two male protagonists. They apparently had engaged sexually just a few hours ago, and two of them woke up. The other guy was still sleeping. And then the one man asked, hey, is it okay if I touch you? Is it okay? So not thinking, oh yeah, I already had sex with her, of course I can lay on her. No, it was, hey, asking for consent again. Is this okay? Does this feel good to you? So learning that, yes, you are supposed to feel good. You do not have to give what you don't feel like giving right now, even if you gave it before. That is so important and so healthy. And I just love seeing it.
And that's important too, because it models both that consent is living. So it to check in, our consent changes. And so are we continuously checking in? But then also recently I was in a conversation with a male friend about consent, and he was like, yeah, but if you talk and you ask, that ruins the energy. And you should just be able to read their body language and to be able to know and use that. And I was like, most of the time people aren't accurately reading body language, first of all. And there can be something really sexy about somebody asking. And the way that we say it can be really sexy. It doesn't have to be clinically like, I want to touch your vagina right now. Can I?
Yeah, and for people like your friend, and I have friends like that too, I recommend, look, read this novel, listen to this particular audio. You can learn how to do this in a very sensual way. And depending on what your dynamics are with your partner and what you both, whether you prefer to be in a dominant role or in a submissive or whatnot, you can do this in a very sensual way. I remember I just actually yesterday, this was actually my friend Danny, who I referenced. I told her yesterday we were having coffee, and I was like, oh, I'm having Dr. Kat in the podcast. She's such a huge fan of yours too. She's like, so excited. So I actually played Danny, and then also another friend of mine, maybe a couple of weeks ago, some episodes, we're sitting in restaurants, I'm playing them these audios, and they're just like, loving it. And I remember one friend actually asked me, why aren't men taught to speak like this? And that's the thing. We learn certain things in school. We're not given what's actually most important. We don't learn how to have constructive conversations, conflict and repair. We don't learn how to exchange sensually. We're not educated into how to curate a sex life, whether it's with on-off partners or long-term partners. And aside from the massive trauma, sexual trauma that one can sustain by things, and I'm not foreign to it either. I've also had history with sexual trauma, did a lot of self-work and healing on that. I do feel that there's also trauma you can sustain by people just being culturally conditioned, not really knowing what to do. And then you just go through the motions, especially as a woman, for most of your teenage or adult life. And you're just left not only unsatisfied, but hurt in many ways. And of course, these are different, maybe you can call it different types of trauma. But I'd like to speak about sexual trauma because that's something you really have a big focus on as well, Dr. Kat. Deep sexual trauma can leave some really profound scars that can disrupt one's relationship with the body. You've discussed it, the dissociation, the numbing, it can for years or not a lifetime. And you've already talked a little bit about this. You've worked extensively in this area, both with traditional therapies and also new and emerging tools. And so speaking about sexual trauma, particularly how it relates to working with psychedelics, in this case, ketamine, which is legal in all 50 US states. What has your experience been, general, like a broad stroke, as a tool for helping survivors of sexual violence, sexual trauma?
Oh my God, it's been incredible. Like, first of all, and speaking on ketamine, what I love about ketamine is that ketamine it acts as this dissociation from your dissociation. So my clients are able to connect with their emotions way easier than in just a typical, non-ketamine session. And so there's a level of they can talk with their emotions, they can be with them, they can identify them, they can identify and be in the trauma or the story. I've even had clients talk with perpetrators in that space. But what's cool about it is that they're able to be there with all these things without it dysregulating them. And that isn't to say that they don't cry or they don't have shakes in their body or movements in the body that are as they're experiencing this challenge, but it softens everything and almost creates this sense, I'm okay. Everything's going to be okay, so that they can work through it. And that's where reprocessing occurs. So now we have these new reference points of them being able to hold these things in a way different way than they were before. Flashbacks bring it up and they get dysregulated and they get stuck and they can't work through it. Similarly, in traditional talk therapy, you can talk about it, but it's not then dropping into the level of the body, which is different. When I'm working with ketamine, I'm pairing it with therapy. There's therapy before, there's therapy during it, there's therapy after it. There's a constant interaction with my client, even in the ketamine space, that brings them into the connection with these parts, helps to deepen the process. So it's more than just them being on their own journey and floating through time and space. That can also be really helpful. But this is a prime time that we can use this for doing the same stuff that I do with therapy. It just amplifies it. Then I also work with clients who've gone into ayahuasca or who've done psilocybin or even MDMA. And all of those are also really powerful or they can be powerful. But then if having the therapy on either side of it helps to be able to make sense of what happened, helps to prepare the person. Some of these psychedelics can be very jarring and break through the very intricate protector parts that we've developed over these painful memories. And so I've had clients come in after doing 5-MeO, DMT, or ayahuasca, and it just blasted through them. And now they're super raw, exposed, and in a lot of panic or hypersensitivity or confusion because now they're really their dissociation that was keeping them safe for so long is not there. And now it's like everything is overwhelming. So then we're doing a lot of therapy to be able to integrate that, which I believe is really important.
It is so crucial, Dr. Kat. Yes.
Yeah.
We've had a conversation a few months ago where we exchanged about what you were doing, and mentioned it in this podcast too. One of my husband's and my ventures is we have a longevity and mental health clinic. We also offer ketamine IVs there, which has been incredible. And the best is when it is in conjunction with therapy. Preparation and integration is so crucial because when people are exposed all of a sudden, it feels like your skin has been ripped off. You feel everything so intensely. And I actually would love to refer some of our patients to you who do not have therapist yet, because I think the work you're doing is absolutely incredible. And I love how you integrate all these tools that some people may see as unconventional. I think the more mainstream they become, the better. The one other thing that you bring into your work, and I need to go into this because I promised it at the beginning of our conversation, is a BDSM. And like I said, I experienced an incredible workshop with you as a facilitator and some of your peers. It was just such a loving space, a spicy and juicy and fun space. And you taught so much about not just the technical aspects, but the emotional aspects and the power dynamics. So BDSM is often misunderstood as something purely physical, or some people may even have the warped impression that it's abusive. However, it can be such a powerful tool for exploring power dynamics, trust, intimacy, also as an into me, see, into my deepest part, see. How do you approach BDSM in a therapeutic context? And what are some of the most common misconceptions your work actually dispels?
Yeah. So from a therapeutic stance, let's see, there's many directions that we can go into this. So some of my colleagues that I do collaborations with who are also pro dominatrixes and doms, there's a lot that you can, by creating a scene or having somebody take on a specific role. And this role could be either in a part of them that they have a difficult time with. They struggle with being able to embody surrender. Here's a good example. When I'm doing rope tying, my type of rope tying, it's shibari based, but I'm more focused on the sensual side of it. So there's something really powerful about helping somebody facilitating a strong container with the rope, with my presence, my attunement, my groundedness, that helps somebody to be able to find a softening and surrender into their body, where surrender is such a difficult concept. It's a complex concept for many people, and there's a lot of tension in the body. So the rope can act as that physical tool to be able to help contain somebody so that they can let go. But then also some of these impact toys, so like a flogger. For me, when I was 24 and discovering BDSM, I was still more dissociated from my body. I was still working through a lot of this stuff that was bubbling up. But when I was in a sex therapy training and they had a pro dom in there who was demoing, I was the person that he did float on. And the floggers were really heavy. And coming into a rhythm of him connecting the floggers to my back, it felt like this deep thud and massage. So it was a grounding sensation that I didn't realize I needed that intense of a sensation for me to just be in the body. Now I know that concept is called the resilient edge of resistance, which is the sweet spot of the pressure of a touch or a type of touch that allows one to be able to let go. Think about a massage. Some of us need a lighter touch. Some of us need a harder touch for us to be able to let go. If I don't have a massage therapist who's touching me hard enough, I notice my back pushes up into them. My body pushes up into their hand to meet them there. And I can't relax. So the same thing can be played with BDSM. It can be sensual. It can be focused on the types of pressure and touch and stimulation for your body to help you to reassociate with your body or to help you to ground into the body. It doesn't have to be high intensity. It can just be meeting you where in that sweet spot to help you to let go. It can also really teach you about the nuances of consent and creating safety with our words and negotiation. To be able to talk about what you're about to do, to feel like you're a collaborative contributor to what's about to happen, to feel that you have control with and a say, a voice in what your body is going to go through. And then to be able to have somebody who's attuning to you and watching you and checking your body language and checking in with you and asking if you need something different. Like that in and of itself is healing. Because if we've gone through sexual trauma, that wasn't available to us. We were overpowered, or we were coerced, or something happened to us that might have even confused a relationship or been a betrayal of a relationship and a trust. And so here, or even our body, feeling our body betrayed us. And so here, this reassociation, these new reference points of safety, of presence can be incredibly healing.
Yes, thank you so much for these incredible insights, Dr. Kat. And another aspect of BDSM is I find it just when you're depressed and your mind is in the past or you're anxious thinking about the present, it just puts you in the now, like yoga does, or martial arts or meditation. It can be such a beautiful thing. And I know you have a client you're talking to shortly. I do not want to take away from that healing time. I'm so grateful you made time today. I do know that you have a workshop coming up. I heard something through the grapevine. Can you tell us about some of the offerings that you're putting forth in the near future? And also when people want to learn more about you, connect with you, where can they do?
Yeah, so they can go to drkatmeyer.com. That's drcatmeyer.com. They can also find me on Instagram at Dr. Kat Meyer. My offering, so I'll be doing some live classes here in LA. Some of them are more women identified, focused on sensuality, being able to drop into the body more. And some of them are more BDSM focused, that is co-ed. And so the upcoming co-ed experience will be on dirty talk and commands. So how to be able to, find the words for yourself, how to embody the energy for yourself, how to embody the roles with using words. And so that'll happen in September live in LA, and then I'll offer it again online early October. So whether you're in LA or not, you can have access to it. But every month I'll be doing more offerings of these live and online so that all people can have that experience. I love the live experiences. It means that we can all get together and play and practice together and just enjoy. But then the outlaw online just makes it so everybody can access and play and learn together too.
Absolutely. Outstanding, Dr. Kat. And I vouch for the live experience. It is such a treat and pleasure to be in your presence and just absorb the energy and learn from you. So I may very well see you in September.
Yay.
And thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. I could talk for hours with you, but again,
same girl. Yeah. I appreciate it.
A follow-up sometime in the future. Thank you so much for making time today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.